Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, RockAuto.com, State Farm, and WeatherTech. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, Brian Robinson.
Whoa, I got my own intro there. I wasn't expecting that. This is podcast 160. Going without our host, John Davis, today on a much-deserved vacation at an undisclosed location.
We don't want fans to come and ask for autographs, right?
All right. Joining me is our new online content coordinator, Greg Carlos.
Yeah, it's still me.
Our writer and researcher, Garrick Zykin.
That's me.
Always worth the wait. And our video editor and podcast producer, Joe Lago.
Glad to be here.
All right. And thanks to all of us joining us on Facebook Live. Be sure to send us a question if you have something as we're going on here, or just want to rant and rave about something. We'll have our rant and rave as well as a lightning round and a viewer question. But first, look at some stuff we got on the show for you coming up. $20,000 compact sedan challenge. Our usual look with cars.com over a certain segment. This one we did recently, and no surprise, Honda Civic is the winner. I could hear the groans out there already in Radio Land.
Is it? I mean, that's really, honestly, real no surprise, though, right? I mean,
because it's a brand new Civic, right?
You guys, obviously, you're human. You go into this thing and you have an idea of what's going to happen. Now you're testing the car, but I mean, you kind of know what's going to happen.
Yeah, sometimes you have to make an excuse why, or you have to try to figure out why the Honda won when you look through all the scores. But, I mean, it was clearly the best of the bunch this time around. It's got tons of room in there. The thing drives spectacular. It had the most horsepower and the best fuel economy. I mean, it's
now, was
pretty
it the
much
turbo
down the board.
Civic, or was it the naturally aspirated one that you had?
1.5 turbo.
Okay.
$23,000 price cap. And I guess the big surprise, well, second place was Kia Forte. A little bit of a surprise, mainly because its big price advantage, and also it had a lot of safety tech that the others didn't have, which got us some bonus points like lane keep assist, although it wasn't the greatest lane keep assist system. Subaru Impreza was up there. Maybe that's a little bit of surprise, but I think we've all
Go
liked
Subaru.
the Impreza. Yeah, it's got the only one with all-wheel drive. And, one of the cheapest ones there as well.
Is that still something that people really want when you do when you have somebody, an actual buyer, somebody in the market come on? Are they still really interested in all-wheel drive? I mean, in this segment, you don't really see it. So
I think it depends on markets, and obviously Northeast and Snow Belt and all that. But also dealers like having it as a bargaining chip. Someone's going back and forth between an Impreza or Civic, and they finally say, "Hey, we're cheaper and we have all-wheel drive."
Yeah, I was going to say that's the big thing is that there's not really a price premium compared to the other brands.
Right. Volkswagen Jetta fourth. Probably the biggest surprise was Mazda 3, not even in the top four. I don't know where it ended up. That wins pretty much everyone else's comparisons. And that's a great car, and then I've recommended it to many people. But this comparison takes everything into account, and that includes noise, which the Mazda 3 is a noisy car, and also room. Has the least room out of pretty much everything in the segment. So obviously it's the most fun to drive, and in a lot of ways people prefer that. And if you do, certainly a good option. But
so the Corolla's not on
Corolla
the top four?
was not up there, despite what Toyota keeps telling us about how much more exciting it is. It hasn't quite got it there yet.
But people buy it, obviously.
Yeah, I know it's the best-selling car of all time. So obviously people do buy it, and people that do buy it like it. And these things, it's just kind of bland for everyone. Styling is not there. Ride and handling, is not up there with the Civic for sure.
We got a question actually from Mike on Facebook. Wants to know about the interior quality on these compact cars. He mentions the Chevy Cruze. Are the Americans keeping pace with the other brands? I mean, who were the best interiors in that competition?
Was good. That's a very good question, because going in, Cruze did not make it in our top four, and going in, I fully expected it to be. And that was actually one of the things that graded it down was just interior quality. They have that new look, which I like the new look, and I like their controls. But, I mean, you spend some time in them, and, it just falls short.
To get to the $23,000 price cap, are they Are these cars coming with a lot of hard plastics, I would imagine? Or are these you'd have to remind me of the price range for these cars. Are these coming nicely equipped, most of them?
Well, it's a hit and miss. I mean, we come up with the numbers based on basically average transaction price. And so we come up with a number with that. And then it's up to the manufacturer. Some will choose, like Kia, packed in a bunch of safety features, stuff like that, because that scores high. Features always score high. People love to see nav and safety features. Or some manufacturers will go with like a sport package to give it better ride and handling or whatever. So,
but that class in general is what, usually like $17,000 up to $25,000 is kind of like, when I think if I'm shopping for a car in that class, that's usually
it's a little higher than that. Yeah, like more in high teens to mid to higher 20s. So,
but I think what's interesting about all four of these and some of the ones that didn't make the top four is it used to be when you got a compact car, you had to sacrifice everything except gas mileage, and that's not the case anymore. You know, you're getting a lot in these smaller cars.
Yeah, we've talked about that a lot. You know, the death of midsize sedan sales just keeps plummeting, but a lot of it is because the compacts, you get everything you got in a midsize. 10 years ago.
And you pull one of these up next to a 96 Camry, it's probably bigger.
Yeah.
You know,
certainly more interior space, for sure. All right, let's move on. Something much, much more exciting. Although, Honda Civic is a pretty exciting car. 911 GT3 Porsche. Greg just got back from Spain.
I did.
And drove it on a track.
I did both of those things. Yeah. I don't want to come off as sounding like a Porsche fanboy,
but you are now.
I am. No, I always like Porsche products, and it's hard not to. There's a reason why so many people love them, especially in the automotive journalist community. But yeah, I mean, what a trip. They flew me over to Spain. I got to drive I started out the day on the street, and like every other Porsche, it handles itself really well. It's tight. Yeah. I was in the sport bucket seats, which were surprisingly comfortable all day, but they're really made for track work because they really hold you in there. But it handles itself really well in the street, and then to the track, it is basically a race car. The new engine is a 4-liter flat 6, naturally aspirated. The 911 is now all turbo. The GT3 does not have a turbo engine.
So it's the only 911 you can buy with a non-turbo engine, right?
I think that's correct.
So right now,
and then all the Cayman Boxster stuff is turbocharged now too, right?
Correct, it is. This engine was taken directly from the GT3 Cup car. Obviously made street legal and everything like that. 500 horsepower, which we can easily forget is still a lot of horsepower. I know the Demon just came out with over 800, but 500 horsepower still is really more than you need. But this is a track car, and it's got a top speed of like 197, 198, I think, with the manual. And there it is. There's a manual transmission that came back to the GT3. The last iteration only had a PDK, which is a great transmission. Everybody loves it. I'm not going to go any further than that. But now you can get the manual as a no-cost option, and I would highly recommend it because it's great.
Well, the PDK is like half a second faster to 60, though, right?
Yeah, it is. You're down to 3.2 seconds, I think, 0 to 60 in the PDK, 3.8 with the manual. But this thing isn't to me, this thing's not like about 0 to 60 like the 911 Turbo is. The 911 Turbo will go, I think we got it down to like 2.8.
Right, yeah.
Something like that.
Crazy.
This is about full-on track performance, and it handles the track very well. The track we were on was kind of a tight course. It wasn't very big, so we didn't get to notice any downforce changes. There's more downforce. The wing on the back is about 3/4 of an inch higher than the previous one. There's a new diffuser, so there's like 20% more downforce. You don't really notice that until you get to the really high speeds, maybe at Roebling if we have one. I hope we do.
Porsche, if you're listening.
We will be able to notice that. Four-wheel steering is added.
Is that new for Porsche?
It's new for the GT3. It was in other models, but again, just really impressed with it. It's got a 9,000 RPM red line, which is really hard to bring yourself to take it up that far because you're so used to shifting it maybe 6 or 7 if you're lucky.
Right.
This goes all the way up to 9, and it's just a beautiful sounding engine.
So everyone looks at the Porsche, the 911 Turbo, as being like the ultimate 911, but as you mentioned, this is the one that all the race cars are based on. Mm-hmm. And so why would you agree with that, or would you say this is, or like if you got some rich guys, like which one should I buy? Like what would you tell them?
For me, it is the GT3. This was the first GT3 that I drove, actually, and I was in that category thinking that 911 Turbo was the best one that I had driven at the time. Now this is what Porsche has right now in terms of 911s. This is the top car, I think, in terms of performance, and I think it just actually broke a Nürburgring record too recently. It beat the previous one by like 14 or 17 seconds or something.
Is it all-wheel drive, or is it?
No, it's a purely rear-wheel drive.
Yeah.
And
so in your rich guy comparison, you have Turbo, which is more horsepower, all-wheel drive, and then the GT3, which is less horsepower, not all-wheel drive. But you're saying it just is so much better feeling, handling, all that stuff. You think it's
the Turbo was balanced. This thing is even more so. It's it doesn't have the all-wheel drive, so there's even less weight in the front end. Everything about it is made to go fast as possible on the racetrack. And I was even talking to some of their engineers and their PR people, and I'm always skeptical about how many people take these things to the track. But he actually said that most of their buyers, I think like 80% of them, do take it to the track, and that's from talking to them and getting customer surveys and things like that. So it warms my heart to know that people
they're actually
take it to
using
the
them.
track. Yeah,
I'm sure they're towing it there with their Cayenne too. I hate those guys. Anyway,
fun car.
Now for something even more exciting, if you can believe it, Garrick Zeichen is going to give us a rundown of the Volkswagen Atlas crossover SUV.
It's a new vehicle, so it is exciting.
Right.
It's exciting for the Volkswagen dealerships that are going to finally have a 3-row SUV.
It is.
And looking forward to making serious cash.
Right. Well, and one of the things about that 3 rows, I put it to the get in the back seat, the 3rd row test. I'm 6 feet tall, and like 5.5 feet of that is legs. So I was able to sit in the back seat, have about an inch between my knees and that 2nd row, which slides, which I think is a very nice feature. And then I sat there and had about another inch between my knees and where the driver's seat was. So there was enough room. When they were doing their presentation, they were talking about it's for 7 adults as opposed to 7 passengers. So I think it scored well on that. It's 16.5 feet long. It's longer than the new long wheelbase Tiguan. I enjoyed driving it. We had the 6-cylinder, which is, checking my notes, 276 horsepower. We did not have the 4-cylinder, which is 235 horsepower. So
the only way you can get all-wheel drive is to get the 6, right?
Correct. That's correct. And I, like y'all are always talking about, drive it in sport mode. And in this particular case, I preferred it in sport mode. It accelerated a little faster. The steering was a little tighter. So there definitely was a difference. What's interesting between the 4-cylinder and the 6-cylinder, the torque is not that much difference. For the 4-cylinder, it's 258. 6-cylinder, it's 266. So, if that's a deciding factor for you, it's pretty close.
That's what a turbo will do for you.
Yeah. Right, and the price difference isn't that much either. It's like almost like $2,000 for the engine or whatever.
Right.
You figure once you start putting on options and packages and stuff, if you're a family that's going out and buying a 7-row Volkswagen, probably not going to matter that much to them.
True, and they expect that most of their customers will get the 6-cylinder model. So, and having driven that, I would probably suggest that.
So clearly going up against Honda Pilot, Toyota Highlander.
Correct.
GMC Acadia, stuff like that. How do you think it's going to fare against them, being their first 3-row crossover?
Well, I think they did a good job. The interior is what we're seeing from Volkswagen now. It's very functional, and there's everything that you need is there for a daily driver. I think it would do the job.
It's based on the Passat, right?
Correct,
yeah,
right, and it's built in the same factory. It's interesting. We just did a story today on our website that Volkswagen is going to have 19 SUVs globally is their goal, and by 2020, I believe.
2025.
2025.
Or no, 2020.
I think
we had a couple different news stories.
One of those.
Sometime in the future.
So sometime way into the future. So so they're going to have 2 that they're launching this year and another 5 next year. So they're definitely geared toward SUVs, as you pointed out.
It's worked for Chrysler.
Right, so. for other automakers.
Yeah, I edited the quick spin for it, which you can see on MotorWeek. And I thought, styling-wise, I think it's one of the better-looking 3-row SUVs or crossovers because it's just not as blobby. Like, sometimes, I don't know, I'm not loving, like, the Mazda CX-9. Some of those, they just can look a little too, like, blobby for me. That one does look squared off, kind of macho. I don't know, kind of what I feel like the Explorer could look like if it wanted to be a little manlier. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not in the market for one, so maybe it doesn't really matter what I think. But I think that the Atlas is a good looking 3-row SUV.
Right. And I'm not in the market for one either, but I enjoyed driving it. So it was fun.
Right on.
And I was in Austin, Texas. Did not get to go to Spain, so I didn't need a passport.
Oh,
Austin's cool. I like Austin.
Did you check out some clubs? Go downtown?
These are work trips.
Come on, man.
It's all business. It's all business.
I know we weren't supposed to have fun.
One of our producers is on a real serious work trip right now, too,
There's always time to release your inner hipster in Austin.
Well, I'm not hip enough, obviously. There we go.
Just button that top button and fit right in.
All right, moving on to our lightning round. We have 2 minutes to debate or discuss. I'm not sure that we actually really debate, but we do discuss.
We're going to go at it today. We're going to.
All right, with nice weather, car show season is starting. 30 years from now, when we all drive autonomous EV crossovers.
Oh, no.
Did you write this
See,
down?
technically,
yes, I wrote that. That's my.
I guess technically we don't drive. So when we're riding in autonomous
EV
when our
crossovers.
autonomous EV crossovers are shuttling us around, what collectible cars from today will we see at car shows? Or will we even have car shows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sure we will.
Okay.
Yes.
People always like to enjoy the past. I
Well,
guess
cars,
anything
too.
with a manual, anything.
Anything with a manual
There
transmission.
we go. The GT3 might even be in there. That'll be one that
That's
I
a
think
good
there'll
point.
probably be plenty of examples hanging around. At least I hope there will be plenty of examples hanging around to could show your kids. Like, yeah, I used to actually shift my own gears, and you see that third pedal
Back in your
It's
day.
this thing called a clutch. It's pretty remarkable.
I think the obvious one is that any of the Hellcat stuff that Chrysler makes, the Dodges, the
if
Jeep
there's any
Track
left,
Hot.
they might all be wrecked.
I mean, yeah.
If you can find a clean one that has never been in an accident,
They're gonna be the future equivalent of like what the Superbird and the Charger Daytona or whatever cars are. They're gonna be the ones that you pull them out of barns and they're worth $300,000.
that might be the guy, and I don't know how to say this without sounding like I'm taking a shot at anybody, but I'll just go ahead and say it. Like the peaked in high school kind of guy. It's just when I think of the Hellcat in 30 years with some guy sitting in front of his car, it's going to be that peaked in high school guy, probably still wearing his Leatherman jacket, saying like, yeah, I used to cruise around in this and get all the chicks and I don't know.
That's what all car shows are about, man.
I mean, yeah. The
Getting
problem,
chicks or
is,
something.
the problem is nobody in high school can afford
Those people in those stories.
can afford one. But I think what about some of the stranger ones? I mean, I think we just had a Chevy SS in.
Well, like
that's going to be
stuff like the BMW i8 will definitely be in there because that's one of the forefront, like one of the cars at the forefront of the movement towards plug-in hybrid performance.
I was thinking
cars.
Tesla Model S too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's
a good one, yeah.
But I think like Chevy SS, there was, and of course anything that's a Pontiac. I mean, any of those brands that all got killed
The
off
Aztec
in
for
20.
sure. People will be rolling up in an Aztec.
I mean, there's some people that really get into collecting weird stuff. I guarantee you'll see those, and they'll be worth extra if they have the pop-up camper tent that came with the Aztec that was like a dealer option. I don't know if anybody remembers that.
I remember. Yeah, I went on that launch when that came out. They had them there.
Maybe a Miata. A Miata might be there with. It'd probably be lost in the sea because the way we're trending now, we'll be all driving big rigs in 30 years. If we're not doing autonomous EVs, it'll be autonomous EV big rigs, and the Miata will probably be run over.
Last weekend, I saw a Miata at a car show that had a V8 in it. It had like a Cobra V8.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Sounds kind of
Yeah, I
deadly.
think Miata sales are actually up. I mean, I think people are still going to be looking for.
I just
Small,
actually received a note that we were getting a RF in like today.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
Well,
stay tuned.
well,
I mean,
we're over our time, but you finish your thought.
No, I'm just saying. I think we'll, by that point, maybe we'll have some small sporty EVs, or whatever that'll
That
be
would
carrying
be-
on that tradition. All right, viewer question. Adam from Ashton, Maryland. I am doing a school project on the difference between super / hypercars and regular sport cars. I have watched some of your episode segments about supercars. Would someone at MotorWeek tell me about some of the engineering differences that make a car a supercar? Thank you for taking the time to read my email. Well, you're very welcome, Adam.
And thank you for asking that question
Yeah.
because I'm curious about
we
that.
just
too.
happen to work in MotorWeek too.
Anybody have a answer for Adam here?
I don't think there's one specific definition. Maybe somebody has formulated one, but I've never come across it. If I had to define it, I'll put it in terms of cars right now. So you could call, let's say, like a base 911. We'll call that a sports car. Then let's jump into. I think you could basically put a 911 turbo into supercar territory
Supercar?
based
Yeah, how
on the
would you do that?
numbers,
Yeah.
which I think you have to take into account. You have to take into account horsepower numbers, 0 to 60 time performance numbers. A hypercar to me would be jumping up into like a Pagani or
like they
a,
build like 5 a
Yeah.
year.
or
you know?
yeah, exactly.
Bugatti Veyron.
Okay.
Stuff like
Something
that.
with like over 1,000 horsepower. We might even because
Well, and the hypercar is kind of a new lexic, like a new word in like the last 5 years. Like, because I don't
when
remember
somebody
anybody saying
built a
hyper.
supercar so super, they're like that is hyper.
Yeah, because I always thought, when I first started getting into cars, like I thought supercars was anything that did a sub 4 second 0 to 60. But I mean, that's
changes.
not even any kind of benchmark anymore
Right,
because
right.
there's muscle cars.
It
that
has
do that.
changed as history has gone on. You're right there. But I mean, if we can try and give like a solid definition, will we base it on horsepower more than
I would think the
anything, or
biggest engineering
performance numbers?
difference would be the numbers on people's bank accounts they can afford them. I mean,
So
anything
you would-
over $1 million to me would be a hypercar.
Well,
So you would tell Adam that 250 or so 200,000 makes it a supercar and $1 million makes it a hypercar.
I don't know. That's a good place.
I think that's a good place to
for
start,
me.
yeah.
I mean,
take into account price, 0 to 60 time, and how many are made. There's a wide range of sports cars, so you're going to go from anywhere from like a Mustang, and I guess you could even consider a Miata, maybe sports car.
Yeah.
car for sure. Yeah.
And then it goes all the way up until like a 911 and maybe some area around there.
Say like a lower end Corvette. It's a sports car, but then like a ZR1. Is this. So I don't know if we have an actual good answer for Adam or not.
What about horsepower? Is there a dividing line of horsepower, would you say?
I'd say
The
there used to
1,000
be.
was a good.
For the hyper.
Whoever threw that out
Yeah,
there.
but
1,000
But what about
would be-
super?
Super? 500 maybe? 600?
I'd say now it's probably pushing closer to 600.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's call it 600.
Okay, so if we were going to come up with
We
a,
should have
with
been
a
writing all
rough
this stuff
scale,
down. We gotta
I'm trying to help you out, Adam. Because
So-
We got to go to Wikipedia and update
But
all
then
that stuff.
then you have to take into other things. So the Porsche 911 Turbo S doesn't reach 600 horsepower,
Okay.
but it goes 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds, which I think bumps it up into a supercar.
Okay.
So you have to find these different parameters and then combine them and then make your decision.
Okay.
Because each one affects the other.
Okay.
yeah.
And what about 0 to 60? What's the cutoff between?
I think so.
On sub 3,
Sub
it
3
automatically puts it in the class.
Well,
of super
is
supercar.
sub 3 hyper? What's hyper? Sub 3 or sub
Say
sub
like
2.8?
2.6
sub
maybe
2,
would be like
I was going to say
hyper.
2.7, but
Yeah.
Okay, so if we're trying to visualize, so hypercar, I think we've got good. It's $1 million
Right.
or 1,000 horsepower or
2.6.
sub
Yeah.
2.7. Okay, so then supercar is a little murkier. So what are we saying? Over 200,000 price? Price.
Yeah, that's what they were saying.
And then around 600-ish or more horsepower, and then sub.
Three
sub
seconds.
three,
Sub 3
Yeah,
seconds.
sub 3
or,
seconds.
And then
or
those
what,
are all
well, the
ors.
problem is what about Dodge Viper? Dodge Viper's 3.3 seconds to 60. So what if we
no,
say
I think the ACR
That's
got down
faster than
below
that.
3.
Yeah.
really? I
Yeah.
thought it was like mid threes.
The Viper ACR is certainly a supercar. Now, maybe a base GTS I don't know if that.
Yeah, that'd be more of a sports car.
Maybe put supercars in there from like I would say like 3.3 to 2.8, 0 to 60 times. Like make it a range.
So I think, Adam, that this is going to be a very long paper once you discuss.
If you listen to us,
single space, don't double space.
Right.
Single
Hopefully you have
space,
something you can use
size
there.
12 times New Roman.
Just make something up and make sure all your spelling and grammar
If you
is all
see it and
tidy.
go, wow, that's a supercar. If you see it and go, holy crap, that's a hypercar.
And if you see it and go like, that's my friend's dad, then it's probably just a sports car, right?
There you go.
All right. Anything on anybody's mind as far as a rant or a rave?
I've got a rave. I've got something I like.
Rave. All right.
Yeah. I didn't bring my glow sticks. But no, I had took our VW Passat for the weekend, and it has lane keeping assist, but I don't think, or else it's turned off, it does not have lane departure warning, or maybe it does and it was turned off. But I do not like lane departure warning. It's beeping at me and it's nagging at me, but I actually kind of like lane keep assist, where it just kind of like gently like nudges you back into the lane. I mean, maybe I'm lazy, maybe I'm a bad driver, I don't know, but I do not mind lane keeping assist versus lane departure warning. Lane departure warning is annoying. It makes my wife think I'm a bad driver, all that stuff. But I like lane keeping assist because we had an Acura TLX that had it. We had other stuff, other long-term test cars that had it, and I actually kind of like it. I think it's just nice to kind of get like a little nudge every now and then to keep you, on the ball.
It has to be the right system. I know some of them can lose the markings very easily.
Well, yeah, and then you're just like, why does it even have it if it can't? Or if it doesn't work.
Some of them are too aggressive, getting you back into the lane. But you're right. I think there are a few systems out there.
Right.
I haven't noticed the one in our Passat, but if they can just gently nudge you back so that you don't really notice it, but maybe subconsciously something's back there helping. Yeah.
Yeah, I have driven. I guess I have driven. I don't know if it was a Volvo or what it was that. It was a little too aggressive. It would, and you'd be like, whoa, easy there, Hoss.
Nice. That's my term.
Yeah.
I coined that.
So I didn't mind that, but yeah, I lane keeping assist. I know sometimes some of these safety features get a little bit of hate for being like too intrusive, but I don't mind it. It's one of the things I don't mind, safety wise.
Nice. So. Finally raved about something.
Really? Yeah.
Woo!
Well done, Joe. I guess that's it.
All right.
That's all the paper says.
We'll thank our audio engineer, Jim Bigwood, and our creator of this podcast, for better or worse, Bob Mixter, and, of course, our producer, Joe Ligo.
Thank you.
And all of you
glad to be here.
Tuning in on Facebook Live. And be sure to keep watching MotorWeek and keep in touch and follow us with all the usual spaces. And thanks again.
You've been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, RockAuto.com, State Farm, and WeatherTech. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at motorweek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series, each week on your local PBS station.